I very much operate at the intersection of art, design, science, technology, and have a social science background. I studied environmental sociology and social anthropology for my BA, and then I went and did my master's in biodesign at Centre St. Martin's, and yeah, so I'm very much one of these kind of specialist generalists that Dasha was talking about. And it's amazing having kind of come from the social science background and also doing a lot of art in my free time, art and design, suddenly being like, I'm a biodesigner. Everybody was like, wow. Like it's so, the respect that we give science in our culture is enormous. So I really, really noticed that. But yes, everybody is like, wow, but nobody actually knows what it is. And so, I mean, there are so many different definitions, but it's kind of the power of biology to positively impact the world through design. And some projects that we did, this is just a screenshot from my website. These are kind of, some of them are solo projects, some of them are group projects, but really we're working with life and living materials. And so projects range from working with algae, fungi, bacteria, bees, octopuses, soil. And what I really specialized in was regenerative systems design, and working with waste and doing a lot of R&D. And yes, this is just a picture of how research in the field kind of can look. This was actually amazing. This was really a passion project rather than like well, anyway. And I collaborated with Pescanova Biomarine Center, and yeah, they were so amazing. This was during COVID and wasn't fully supposed to be going to Spain, but they said I couldn't go to their lab because of COVID, so they set up this lab in the back of their truck, and in that pot, terracotta pot, is an octopus, and that was the first actual encounter that they had with an octopus, and it was just amazing, amazing. And but anyway, my main, let me move this. Yes, my main project, which I thought that I wasn't going to be allowed to talk about today, but actually I've been allowed to. It was called Alga Vodka, and then we rebranded it and called it Blimey. But basically it is the vodka is the product of a regenerative system whereby you're taking vodka wastewater, which is high in nitrates and phosphates, and which is essentially algae food, and you cultivate algae in that wastewater, which bioremediates that water, also, and also produces huge controlled algal blooms. And then from that high starch producing algae, you undergo a process of hydrolysis and then fermentation and distillation, like you would with any vodka substrate, and you produce vodka once again. So yeah, vodka wastewater back into vodka, and then also with the leftover algal biomass, you then, again, this is talking about collaboration and thinking about all of the different players in the field. You then take the algal biomass and you produce algae-derived inks and this packaging, and then also working with farmers and using the algae as fertilizer. So this is my kind of double closed loop project that was taken to the IUCN Congress, and yes, it was a collaboration with LVMH and Maison Zero and UAL. Yes. Is it going to go? It's not going to go. There we go. So this was picked up. This is, I'm not doing this in a great order, but and I went and I spoke about this at the Change Now International Climate Summit, and it was amazing. It was at Le Grand Palais éphémère in Paris, and it was really, really incredible. But it didn't sit so well with me because it was very much it was about solutions to save the planet. And I struggle with that. I find that terminology a little bit just difficult and potentially a little bit short-sighted. But before this happened, I spoke at, the project was picked up by She Changes Climate, who are an organization calling for 50-50 representation of women at all the top levels of climate and biodiversity summits. And they are phenomenal, a really, really amazing group of women. So so they had their event at COP26. And this, if you want to, you can scan that and it will take you to their their video. It's just like, it's 17 minutes long, but it's, yeah, it just tells you more about what their mission is. And what came from this was, firstly, you know, they were asking, the COP26 was called the Male, Pale and Stale COP. And so they were kind of stomping their feet and being like, where are the women? And so we had this really, really beautiful talk, but actually a huge thing that came out of it. Yes, of course, I mean, I'm, you know, preach to the choir, but we need, I was saying, of course we need women, but actually it's not just that we need women in these spaces, it's actually that we need the feminine in these spaces as well, which is also a lot more inclusive, because it means that, you know, we all have the feminine within us. And so it's not us being like, women save the world, you know, it's also, yeah, it's more inclusive and for everybody, which I think resonated with a lot of people, which was amazing. And what else was I going to say on that? Yes, I also want to say that obviously this is exactly what is happening here. And then also to talk about Catalyzed Change, which is a program run by Tracy Lewis, which is amazing, helping getting young people like into this space. But that also very much is working with women, so she's amazing. And so here I spoke on a panel with, it was the Creative Brothers and Sisters panel. And so we were all artists in all sorts of different, in different ways. And I mean, there were singers, yeah, there were dancers, there were traditional painters and artists, but then also there were indigenous representatives and kind of folk people. And it was so interesting because people were asking, I mean, you know, we hear this is the bioeconomy, but that is all linked to sustainability, which is all fundamentally linked back to nature. And it's all about our relationship with nature. And there are so many different ways of relating to nature. And so somebody asked in the panel, they said, how do we get back to nature? And I don't know about you, but I hear a lot of people asking that question. And it was so interesting because kind of half of us, and it was more kind of a Western mindset, was being, you know, we need to get hands-on and experimental and really just like, and play and touch. And one person said, which I don't know if you resonate with, but he was like, he asked, why are artists and scientists the only adults allowed to play? And I just think it's such a good line. And I was like, everyone was like, yeah. Anyway, it was amazing. So anyway, so we were kind of being like, down, play. But then Veronica and Munda and Sam Lee, you know, all of these, the more kind of holistic folk people were talking about the importance of reverence as well, and spirituality, and the more kind of immaterial world. And you know, we don't really talk about that at like science conferences, and so it was amazing to kind of be thinking about nature on one side, kind of science there, culture here, and we were working at that intersection, but then also about the like materiality and the immateriality and spirituality. And actually, really, as human beings, we are at that intersection. And I think science doesn't often talk about that. And so this panel was just, you know, it was really, really powerful. And actually, I think it kind of led on to what is happening and right now. And in the bioeconomy, science is expanding, I feel like. And it's expanding into kind of new territories that either kind of were forbidden and not really allowed to be spoken about. Like, for example, consciousness was not, you know, not allowed to be spoken about. And now we're talking about ecology and mycology, all of these things. So science is becoming more, yes, more biological rather than like chemical, I'd say, what you were talking about. And yes. And again, so this is kind of just to reiterate that, well, yes. Anyway, so what I'm doing now, many things, but one thing is I'm working on a book called, well, it's an anthology, bringing people together who are working at the intersection of art and science and this expansion that I was talking about, and the relationship between modern science and what Darsha was saying about, and also all of you talking about the importance of collaborating with communities. And it's not strictly indigenous communities, but it is also, you know, that is a fundamental piece of the puzzle. And so that relationship is actually very tense and very tricky to walk, but really, really fundamentally important to this whole. And actually, I would really love here's, if we could circulate a link afterwards just to sign a petition, because actually we have links with, I did a residency in Brazil, and we have links with an indigenous community, the Tupi-Guarani, and at the moment Brazil have just passed a bill saying that like uncontacted tribes are allowed to be contacted, and people, and they don't have the right claims to their land, and so and this bill was just passed, especially under the new government in Brazil as well. It's a big shock, so that would be amazing just to circulate that. Yes, so working on this, and then I was working at the London Steiner School, which was in Balham, and I was working as the after-school club leader, leading like classes focusing on arts and crafts and ecology and physical education. And so Steiner philosophy, I don't know if you know it, but it's all about embodied learning. So it's kind of head, heart, and hand. So it's very holistic, and it's really beautiful. But the school has closed down, and so I find myself again in the position not having a job, and so that kind of is the fourth thing. So yeah, I was kind of thinking, so yes, in terms of inclusivity, women is the first thing, the feminine is the second thing, the third thing is indigenous communities and indigenous wisdom, and the fourth, oh, this is maybe not the right slide, well, it doesn't matter, and the fourth thing is young people as well. It's really, really difficult, especially as a specialist generalist or a generalist specialist. Anyway, but working at this intersection, being like, yes, so I have this social science background and I'm in the science world, but I'm not a scientist. And so I'm an artist, but I'm also a little bit of a designer. And so it's really, really difficult. And so talking about, how do we actually move forward and kind of help these people but like, I want to be working, and there's so many of my friends as well. It's very hard to get into the space, but anyway, I'm fully channeled into the mushroom world, but generally the biomaterials regenerative world. And actually there is so much going on, which is really, really exciting. It's just quite difficult to get in, but yes, that is to summarize, I guess. And yeah, I also didn't say the algae vodka project maybe is happening, so we don't know. So again, yeah.
So you've given a really good insight into what it feels like to be at these crossroads and not knowing which way to turn, and that's what the Bioladies is there for.
Yes, exactly.